Top of the morning, security gang. Welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. My name is James Azar. I'm the host of the CyberHub Podcast. I'm also the Chief Information Security Officer and Cybersecurity Practitioner. Thank you all for tuning in this morning, September 29th, 2025. Packed show, y'all. Packed in every sense of the word. It's been a crazy weekend. Crazy. I hope everyone touched grass a little bit. It's really important because we work in computers, because of the realm of cyber and the fact that cyber, really a lot of it is, yes, it's governance and it's policy and it's all of that. But if you have a SOC team, if you've got a threat intel team, if you have a team that really spends a lot of time in kind of the trenches, it's really important that they get out and touch grass. Really important. If you haven't done that, you should get out and touch grass. Just do it. Touch grass. Critical. All right. With that being said, let's get the show going here. We've got a lot to talk about. I've got my double espresso this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Perfect. All right. We're going to fly across the pond to the UK where, there's a lot to talk about there. So the first ever cybersecurity bailout is now on the books. It's a £1.5 billion, nearly a $2 billion loan guarantee for Jaguar Land Rover in response to the cyber attack that hit the car maker. So the announcement came on Sunday. We talked about this last week on the show. If you remember last week on the show, we were talking a lot about JLR. And oftentimes as practitioners, and in a lot of circles, I was at an event last week on Thursday where, I kind of heard the regurgitated stuff from a decade ago. What are you going to do if you get hit with a cyber attack? Well, everyone knows you recover. Everyone knows there's a cost. And in most cases, that cost is covered by insurance. However, this year has really changed that paradigm. It's changed it significantly because we've now seen these types of cyber incidents impact organizations to the tune of 400 million, 500 million, and in this case, the Jaguar Land Rover case now exceeding $1 billion. Now, the last time this happened was around NotPetya 2017 when Maersk, the shipping giant, had like a $1.2 billion insurance claim for the disruption of the attack that went to court. We talked about it here on the show several years ago. And that kind of was, all right, that's a out there story. This isn't. This is an in here story. This is just a simple ransomware attack that hit Jaguar Land Rover in a way that required the intervention of a commercial bank with the backing of the Export Development Guarantee provided by the export credit agency UK Export Finance on a loan that'll be paid back over 5 years to boost cash reserves. Primarily, they're giving that money to JLR so that they can pay down the rest of their supply chain to keep those guys alive. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who's an economist, smart dude, works in one of the largest financial institutions in the world. And he told me something very, very important. He said, look, these manufacturing companies, they live at most on a 30-day rolling cash reserve. In many cases, they live off of 15. And this incident is now on day 29. So keep that in mind. Now, some people are going to argue that cyber criminals are going to look at this and say, governments get involved now so we can continue to do it. Potentially. The question is, the UK, which is headed down a slippery slope in a lot of aspects, right? I mean, a lot of aspects. The UK is at a crossroads in every aspect of that country's existence at the moment. And they're going to need to make some very, very difficult decisions in the coming future. If the federal police in the UK, the national police, they don't have federal, right? If they have the national police there, doesn't specifically put a target on the backs of these attackers and go hunting them down wherever they may be, then you can imagine that the perception that now bailout will assist cyber criminals to continue targeting UK companies with weak cyber is 100% true. However, if they go after them with everything they've got, they don't let go, they chase them, they grab them, and they nib them, that puts a stop to it. Because at that point, you know. And once you know, you know. All right. So JLR also failed to secure cyber insurance, according to insurance website The Insurer, reporting last week that the car maker refused to confirm nor deny whether or not they did have cyber insurance, which could explain some of the challenges here. JLR is owned by the Tata Group out of India, and some of their cybersecurity and other IT services were actually outsourced to the Tata Consultancy Services, which is a subsidiary of the Tata Group. And they also happen to be those who work with Marks and Spencers and Co-op, which we'll get to here in just a minute, which were targeted by Scattered Spider. So could this all, once the investigation is done, could this point to their MSP, to their MSSP potentially, kind of like what we saw with Clorox and Cognizant potentially? And there's a lot of risk there, a ton of risk there. Sorry, this was on alignment before we started the show, literally 10 seconds before we did. All right. Co-op shaving $275 million off their revenue due to the cyber attack. That's a $206 million hit in revenue due to the April cyber attack that left their store shelves empty and led to the theft of customer data. The attack was one of several there. In the earnings report filed on Thursday, Co-op said its food business was hit hardest by the incident, with availability reduced as systems were proactively taken offline. In-store supplies were noticeably impacted weeks after the incident was detected. CEO Sharon Cowrie-Hack telling customers that the staff were working day and night to protect our systems and get operations back on track. So that's a $235 million hit. That's there. We stay in the UK because Harrods is starting to notify customers that their own data breach impacted some of their personal information. The company noting late Friday that some names and contact details of some of their online customers were taken after one of their third-party system provider systems was compromised. Harrods said the data breach wasn't connected to an incident in May when it restricted internet access across its sites as a precautionary measure following an attempt to gain unauthorized access to its systems. 4 people were arrested as part of their involvement in the cyber attack on Harrods, Marks and Spencers, Co-ops, and so many others. So the UK just, I mean, this is catastrophic economically for the UK. Catastrophic in every sense of the word. And it's going to impact their GDP. It's going to impact job security. It's going to impact growth. It's going to impact a lot of things. And we're going to see this. Now, this is the talking point as cyber practitioners we ought to use. These are the talking points that resonate with the board. These are the use cases that we can use to drive understanding and adoption of cybersecurity within our organizations. These are it. This is it right here. This very moment we've been waiting for over a decade or two, right? I remember this HVAC company and Target going out. That was a small business. Park it to the side. Equifax, nothing happened. Chase, nothing happened, right? Not Petya. All of those companies, all of them recovered. But now we're seeing downstream economic impact in the billions and billions of dollars. Last week on the website, and this Sunday, yesterday, it became absolutely free for y'all to go read. I wrote an article around breaking we got to break the mold. We got to get out of the status quo. We got to break the status quo of cyber. And it requires strong leadership. It requires a will and a desire to do so. And if we're able to do that, we're able to put a change to it. Our economies cannot continue to sustain billions and billions and billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions. Cybercrime is a $6 trillion a year economy. $6 trillion. That's the third largest economy. US, China, EU, cybercrime. Fourth largest economy. Let that sink in. All right. We continue with RTX, the parent company of Collins Aerospace, which was responsible for the cyber attack that crippled London Heathrow, Brussels Airport, and the airports in Berlin and Dublin due to a ransomware impact there. So now in a filing with federal regulators say the multi-user system environment software known as Muse is used by multiple airlines to check in and board passengers. It's also used to track baggage. Virginia-based RTX saying the Muse Systems operates on a customer-specific network outside the company's enterprise network. And UK authorities said on Wednesday a man in his 40s had been arrested on suspicion of violating the Computer Misuse Act. We talked about that. The investigation is still unfolding. So this wasn't an attack on RTX. This was an attack on a system that hosted the RTX system that was hosted apparently for all 4 or 5 of those airports simultaneously in all of those airlines. So you have that there as well. We continue with the ransomware attack on Ohio County, on Union County in Ohio, impacting 45,487 local residents whose social security numbers, financial information were stolen during the May cyber attack. The letters say that the letters notifying folks said that the ransomware was detected on May 18th, prompting officials to engage in incident response. The county has 71,000 residents, is about 45 minutes outside of Columbus and the Ohio State University. Union County is the latest local government to notify the public of a cyber attack. As of 2025, they've seen dozens of these attacks. We talked about it earlier this year, April, May. That was literally almost every single show. We talked about another municipality, another school district, another county, another city getting hit by ransomware attacks. Again, the need for attention there is significant. We'll continue with something that kept many of y'all busy over the weekend. The Cisco zero day that's being taken advantage of by the Chinese, the ArcaneDoor espionage campaign. This is CVE 2025-20333. It's got a CVSS score of 9.9er and also CVE 2025-20362 with a CVSS score of 6.5. The bug impacts the VPN web server of Cisco Secure Firewall Adaptive Security Appliance and Secure Firewall Threat Defense software. The issue, Cisco explains, exists because user supplied input in the HTTP request is not properly validated, which allows a remote attacker to send crafted requests and execute arbitrary code with root privileges or access a restricted URL without needing any sort of authentication. Both vulnerabilities, Cisco notes in the fresh alert, were discovered after it was called in on May 2025 to assist with investigating attacks targeting government organizations, in which the ASA 5500X series devices with VPN web services enabled were compromised as part of the attack. Cisco linked it to the ArcaneDoor espionage campaign from China. Attackers were observed to exploit multiple zero-day vulnerabilities and employed advanced evasion techniques such as disabling logging, intercepting CLI commands, and intentionally crashing devices to prevent diagnostic analysis, according to Cisco. Again, the Chinese remain active. We know what they did in telecom with Cisco devices. We now see it here as well. Understand they're going after government organizations. They're going after specific businesses. We'll get into what those impacts are here at the very end as we see that happening. Google's Project Zero revealing a new technique capable of bypassing the address space layout randomization protections on Apple devices. The finding, which was published by security researcher John Horn, stressed a novel way attackers could exploit deterministic behaviors in Apple's serialization framework, specifically within the NS-keyed archiver and NS-keyed unarchiver to leak pointer values without triggering conventional memory safety flaws or using timing side channels. So no one's taking this. No one's taking advantage of it yet. Apple did respond and mitigate it. But again, showing you these 0 days exist and they can go all the way back to 15 years ago. Akira ransomware is now targeting SonicWall's SSL VPN devices as it continues to evolve its attacks, with threat actors now successfully logging in despite OTP MFA being enabled on some of those accounts. Researchers suspect that this may be achieved through the use of previously stolen OTP seeds, although the exact method remains unconfirmed. Bleeping Computer reported back in July that Akira ransomware operations was exploiting SonicWall SSL VPN devices to breach corporate networks, leading researchers to suspect that a zero-day flaw was being exploited to compromise those devices. CVE 2024-40766 was disclosed in September of 2024. This was patched back in August, but nonetheless, they're still taking advantage of it. They're bypassing MFA, and it's just showing you exactly that you've got to have layered defense and approach there. That's so important. We have a comment here from Lucky number 7. Oh, the cost of offshoring software talent. I'm not going to disagree with that statement today. All right, we continue with 2 teenage boys arrested in the Netherlands over suspicions of spying for pro-Russian hackers. The 17-year-old boys were allegedly approached by the attackers on Telegram. According to local media, one of the boys was allegedly seen walking by Europol and Eurojust headquarters and the Canadian embassy while carrying a Wi-Fi sniffer, which is used to map Wi-Fi networks and intercept data. Prosecutors confirmed their arrest, saying the teens were suspected of links to government-sponsored interference. Parents, don't let your kids hang out on Telegram. Yes, they're 17. The boy's father reportedly said his son had a part-time job as a heavy gamer, computer savvy, with a fascination for hacking. There's nothing wrong with fascination for hacking. That's what B-sides exist for. That's what DEF CON is for. You bring your teenager, you have him get introduced to the good guys, to the white hat guys, to the people who are going to give him a job when they finish high school and an internship and send them down the path. They don't need to go to college to become a hacker. You go get a few certs, get started with their career. They'll get just as much value without any of the debt. But the fact is that these parents ignore these kids. At the end of the day, they're 17-year-old kids. Are they adults? Yes. Do they know the difference between good and bad? Yes. Is it exciting to do something for someone on Telegram? Sure. Absolutely. Especially if you're a gamer, especially if it's phrased in a way where it feels like something like that. So again, they go out there, they do it, they feel important. Someone is actually using their skills. It's honing in on it. We have two options here. We either take those skills and hone them in defensively or offensively to help us, or we allow foreign nations to continue to interfere with our kids. And that's a very, very big no-no for me. Which gets us to TikTok. President Trump signaling an executive order that approved a plan to restructure TikTok operations in the country to address national security concerns. So this doesn't necessarily take it out of the Chinese's hands. The Chinese will still get 20% equity in the new company. However, the other 80% will be owned by a joint group. It's looking like Larry Ellison from Oracle is going to be leading it. With several others. They're going to be controlling the security. They're going to be controlling the algorithm. All user data will stay in the US. The Chinese side will not have access to that data. There's an audit function there. ByteDance will be excluded from the company's security committee. Security partners will monitor software, algorithm, and data flows to make sure China doesn't get it. This seems, if all of these points are hit, this is a great deal by President Trump. Hands down, great deal by President Trump. And especially if you're able to enforce it, audit it, and report it, great deal. Among the investors, Anderson Horowitz, private equity firm Silver Lake Management, will manage TikTok's operation and algorithm. Oracle has been working with TikTok, will host user data from the region. It'll also take on an expanded and more formalized role in the operation. So yours truly might be on TikTok very, very soon. I've withheld being on TikTok for quite some time. If this deal does go through, which I believe it should this week, then you'll quickly see us pull in a TikTok. And right there on the bottom of the screen, we might be adding a TikTok logo as well. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.